with Jan's Jewelry Supplies. Welcome to Soldering Made Easy Video 5. Today we are going to be using a prong and screen finding, or also known as a perforated screen finding, in one of our pieces. We're going to be making the mate to this rather large earring. This earring measures in total about 5.5 inches. As you can see, there are rhinestones that have been soldered and beads that have been attached. The beads have been attached through a screen finding, which is behind this plate. Underneath that plate is one of these screens, and this is what we'll be soldering to. This is basically going to be our base. Since this is a very large earring, you may want to make it into a pendant or a brooch, or do a smaller version of this. I'm going to list the supplies that it'll take to make one of these earrings. If you decide to make the earrings, then you will need to double the supply list. You are going to need 9 14 by 10 pear-shaped rhinestones in their settings. You're going to need 1 prong and screen finding. These come as a pair. And this is 26 millimeter or 1 1/8 inch. And these two pieces go together. The first thing you need to do before you start placing your rhinestones out is to mark the prong and screen finding. You just need to mark it as to where the prongs are going to fall. Just set it on there and take a Sharpie and mark where the prongs are going to be. And the reason for this is if you solder where these prongs are, you will not be able to get the back on because of the placement of the prongs. And I am just going to pull this off of the prong and continue the markings over to the edge, and then turn it over and mark them on the back side. And I will know not to solder on these spots. The first thing I'm going to do is lay my screen down with the prong area at the top and the bottom. Then I'm going to start laying out the pear-shaped rhinestones. And there's going to be 2 in between each of those marks. So I'm just going to set them out there. I'm not going to push them down. Just want to make sure I have them spaced properly and avoid the areas where the prongs will be first. Once I have them in position, then I can push them down just a little bit to hold them in place. Since the small rhinestones are going to alternate in color, I've gone ahead and laid them out, alternating them from black diamond to black, black diamond to black, and that's how I'm going to place them as I start adding them to the piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them around the edge. Since I don't want the screen soldered to the very edge of the setting, that is to the top portion of it, I'm going to pull it out now that I have everything placed pretty much the way I want it. I'm going to slide everything back just a tiny bit. And if I do this, this will make the screen rest about midway. Make it rest right about, not quite the center point of the edge of the setting. I want it resting right here and not down here. So pushing these in and then putting the screen back on there should make it rest about midway. Again, I want to make sure I set my black marks. Okay. Basically, it's kind of teetering there on the settings right now. Now I just want to make sure all of my round stones are still touching the pear, seeing as how I've pushed them all in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and start soldering this piece. And I am going to start with the settings because I want to make sure it's good and hot before I touch the screen, since it's just teetering there basically. So I'm just going to heat it up, apply the solder, remove the heat, apply the solder, remove the heat. And it's probably hot enough now I can just dab the setting, not quite. Need to adjust the screen a little bit. I'm going to continue around the edge, let this heat up some more. And I'm using the low temperature solder. This one heats at 300 degrees, or it melts at 300 degrees. Whenever I solder the screen, I really just want to hit the setting so I don't disturb the screen. There. Now that my piece is cool to the touch, I'm going to go ahead and lift it up and test it to make sure that it is solid. It appears to be very solid. So I'm going to put it back down in the clay. Make sure it's down in there, that all the pieces are secure so they won't fall. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and add the jump ring. And to do this, instead of using the third hand, I am just going to use a little bit of Play-Doh to brace the jump ring. Just want to make sure it's flat, and I need it at the tip of one of these pear-shaped settings. Just going to apply some heat. Once it's good and hot, I'm just going to touch it with the solder. I'll pull this piece up and test it and make sure it's solid. It is solid. So I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to go ahead and start on the top piece and go ahead and get all the soldering out of the way while I have this Play-Doh here. And this top portion, all it is a pear setting with the two Navettes below it. soldered it at each joint. I'm going to put it back down in the clay because now I'm going to add the jump ring and the ear clip. And this particular ear clip is a little bit long for my piece, so I'm just going to cut this round portion off. I'm going to take some solder paste and just put a little bit of solder paste on the back of the ear clip where it's going to lay against the setting. Alright, I'm going to just use some Play-Doh to brace the jump ring, and then I'm going to come back and set the ear clap up there with the third hand. So I'm going to solder both these pieces at the same time, both the solder paste and the solder wire melted at 300 degrees, so I can heat both of these pieces at the same time. I have both pieces on there. I'm going to use my solder wire. I'm going to go ahead and start applying heat. Okay, this has cooled down enough. I'm going to go ahead and remove the third hand and set it aside. And there's the top portion. There's the bottom portion. I'm going to go ahead and clean these up and start on the beadwork. I'm just going to set this one aside while we do the beadwork. The beadwork, you will need side cutters for cutting your head pins and eye pins, round nose pliers for making your chain, and needle nose pliers to close the loops. I'll go ahead and show you how to make the chain. Your bottom bead is going to be the oval bead, the 15 by 10 black diamond oval. You're just going to put it on your head pin. You're going to cut it off. Once it's all the way through, you're going to cut it off to where it's just in between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. And then take the end of it and just roll. And you can go ahead and close your loop with the needle nose. There's the loop. And I like to just go ahead and make my beads up, go ahead and get them ready. So I'm going to use an eye pin, stick it through one of the 10mm beads. Again, you just cut it off to where it's between 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch, and just roll it, and go ahead and close it just by pushing in at the end. And you continue to make some of these beads. To make your chain, you're going to need 10 of these ovals using a head pin, and you're going to need 38 of the 10mm beads with the loop on each end using the eye pin. And once you get all your beads done, then you're going to start looping them together. To do so, all you do is grab hold of the loop, pull sideways, fit the loop from one of the round beads over it, and then turn it back the way it was to close it up. You get your chains ready before you start adding them to the screens, and here's what you'll need. You're going to need 2 that have 4 round beads with an oval on the end. You're going to need 4 that have 3 round beads with an oval on the end, and you're going to need 4 that have 2 round beads and an oval on the end, and then you're going to need 3 of the round beads with just head pins. And once you get all of your chains made, you're going to put an eye pin through the loop and close it. And place one of the round beads on there, like that. You're going to do that with all of these chains. Each one of these will need to have an eye pin with 1 bead. Our pins are ready to start adding to the screen, or our beads are ready to start adding to the screen. What you do is you just take your longest ones first, and you just go to the bottom. The area where there is no loop is going to be the bottom, and you will just find a hole in the screen, probably lower bottom, close to center, and push it through to the back. You see the pin is sticking up here. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off to where it's only about between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm just going to grab hold of it with the needle nose pliers, and I'm going to curl it. And once I've curled it, I'm going to just smash it so it can't come through the other side. Okay. Then I'm going to pick up the next one and do the same thing. It will go right next to the first bead at the bottom. Turn it over. Cut it off and roll it and smash it. And now we have 2 on there. And you're just going to continue up, going with the longer ones and then moving up to the shorter ones. And I'm going to go ahead and continue on there, and then I'm going to show you how to put the last beads in. We are almost finished. All right, I'm going to show you what to do with the last 3 beads. They're basically just going to be filler at the top. You're just taking a single bead and placing it in the screen wherever you can find room for it at the top. Just turn it over. And you're just going to cut it off and roll it and smash it just like the others. When you put these last 3 in, you may not have room to get it all the way down to the screen, and that's okay. This is mainly just to give some depth anyway. So our screen portion is finished. Now, just to put the 2 pieces together, we have our jump ring here and our jump ring here. I'm going to use the little C connector to connect those two pieces. Just the little C connector. I want the ridge portion to be at the front and the opening will be at the back. So I'm just going to hook that on to the jump ring. And I will just grab hold of the edge of that and smash it down. And now I will hook the top portion onto this area that is still loose. Just hook that on there and close that. It will look like this. You need to put the back on this. And to do that, all you do is take the screen, get the prongs in between one of the openings. Sometimes you have to come in and push your loops down a little bit, flatten them. Let's try that again. There we go. Just go in with your pliers and pinch the prong. And here's another one right here. Just go in and pinch that around the screen. And it's done. There's our finished earrings. Thank you for watching Jan's Jewelry Supplies Soldering Made Easy Video 5. Watch for more of our soldering videos for different soldering techniques.